So there's a lot to cover in this video. You can find timestamp links in the description so you can skip around. We will start with a couple of sounds. Okay, so basically Simpliciter is a sampler, so we can load sample files onto it and play them back in all sorts of ways, but we can also use it to record. It has also sound on sound, so we can sort of overdub and create complex textures. We can slice the sample and jump between the slices randomly, sequence them, and so on. So if I right click Simpliciter, we can load an audio file. So I will load the sample I have ready. This is, by the way, a sample for my sound pack, links in the description if you are interested. And Simpliciter will work with any sample rate or bit depth, WAV or AIFF formats. So now the sample is playing back, and we can change the length of playback just by changing the window with the mouse. You can also use the knobs here. Now I can move this selection by holding Control on the keyboard and dragging it. So I can let it play this section, for example. We can also control the playhead by holding Shift on the keyboard. And with Alt I can make it jump from one position to another. So let's enlarge this window. Now I'm just holding Alt on my keyboard and clicking anywhere with the mouse. Very cool. Okay, we can also change the playing speed with the vary speed, and this will of course also change the pitch. It's really nice to explore sounds like this. Really interesting. Oh man. Of course this can also be played in reverse. Here 1 means the original octave, so if you see this is green 1 means forward and the original octave, and red means in reverse. But of course we can also change the octaves. This will change the playing speed. We can also pause the sample wherever we want, of course with the CV input. Also the vary speed has a CV input. And we can restart everything with the start button. Now we can set it also to continue looping with the loop button, or to be a one-shot sample. And we can set it to gate mode. So it will only play as long as an incoming gate in the start input is high. So now you can see it doesn't play. And I have here the manual gate module from Bog Audio. You can see this also on the scope. Whenever the gate is high, you can see it's playing. When I let go, it stops. So only as long as the gate is high. So those are the most basic functions of Simpliciter. Let's dig a bit deeper and start by looking at how we can use it to record external audio. Okay, so here I have a voice that I can play with my keyboard. I have the MIDI to CV module set to my computer keyboard. This is going through a quantizer because I don't know which key is what. And I have here Terraform as our voice. This is going through some reverb, so it will sound like this. Very nice. Let's record a phrase into Simpliciter. So first of all, let's make the connections. I will send the voice itself to the input here in the input section, and from the output it will go back to the reverb. And let's record something. I will hit record and start playing. hit record again, and we have the recording. So first of all, if you right click the window itself, not the main module, the window itself, we have some options regarding the level of the recording, so we can normalize the selection, we can amplify it, we can attenuate it. Let's for now normalize it. Very nice. Now if I continue playing the voice, we will still hear it on top of the recording. So if I take it, for example, an octave up, we can still hear it, and this is where the sound on sound feature comes into play. So we can change the mix of what we hear. All the way to the left will be only the recorded sample. So now you can see here I'm playing the voice, but it's not going through. All the way to the right will be only the incoming signal. Now we can also deactivate the sound on sound altogether with the sound on sound button. So now the voice is not going through, and if we record, it will not record what is playing. Now if we deactivate the line button, which is the pre-sound on sound, we will hear the incoming signal only when recording. So let's bring this back for now. Let's take this maybe an octave lower. No, maybe take this here an octave lower. And this maybe let it play in reverse even. Very nice. Now we can record on top together with how the current sample is playing. So let's maybe have a longer attack and a bit longer decay, and let's record something on top of this. So now if you bring back the settings, we will get this recording and also what it recorded from the sample that was playing back. This is the sound on sound feature basically. And again, this will record according to the mix. So if you have more of the recorded sample, it will record the recorded sample with higher levels. If you have it more for the incoming signal, it will record the incoming signal with a higher level. Okay, let's take this octave lower and maybe record another layer on top. Let's take this maybe to play in reverse. Listen to this a bit. Okay, now there's a nice option in the right-click menu of the window itself. It's called the Do S-Pen Store trick for no clicks in looping samples. Basically, it will cut the sample in half, switch the parts and add a crossfade between them. This will create a nice looping sample. So let's do this. And let's have a listen to this. Very nice. So we have a looping sample. Okay, now of course we can also save this sample. So in the right click menu of the main module here, I can save the WAV file. I will just call it 1 maybe, save. And now we have it saved. Next time you load the patch, it should load the sample as well. Okay, now of course this can also work with rhythmic elements, so let's have a look. So here I have a voice going, I have permutation from grayscale, sequencing an FM voice with 2 FM operators. It sounds like this. Now I can rhythmically record segments of it with the clock division, for example, and if you notice here I have the voice going directly once to the mixer and once to Simpliciter, but the SOS, the sound on sound, is deactivated, so it will not let the sequence through and will record only the incoming signal, so it will not record what's already playing back on Simpliciter. So let's use a clock division to trigger the recording, every clock division of 8. So now it started recording. So it stopped and it's playing it back. So it's recording with the clock. And always recording a different sequence. And again, it will not record what's playing back here because the sound on sound is off. So now let's make it play in reverse and maybe an octave lower again. So we get a nice layer. Now we get those clicks here and there, but we can attenuate them with the anti-click function, the transient smoother. We can also set the X-fade option in the right-click menu. This might help even further, the X-fade start, reverse, end. So now we don't get those clicks, hopefully. Very nice. Now this will work also really nicely with drums. So here down I have another example. I have the gate sequencer triggering or sequencing a few drum modules from proc. This is going through a mixer, it will sound like this. So this is just the drum sequence. Now again, this is going directly to the mixer once the sound on sound, the SOS, is deactivated, so it's going also to Simpliciter, and you can see I'm using the trigger from the snare drum to trigger the recording. So you get always something different, it will sound like this. Just to add another layer to it. By the way, this is going through a high-pass filter and I'm modulating the panning also, just again to add another texture to the drum loop. Very cool. Let's add a nice bass to this. I have the percussive vibration. I'm sequencing it with 2 notes with a sequential switch, going through some delay and reverb. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Let's bring it back, the first voice also. Again, you can create really interesting textures and layers. Okay, let's have a look now at the slicing capabilities of Simpliciter. So here I have a piano recording. Very nice. Now we can start and slice the sample, saving the slices for later use. So we can either select on the screen directly like we've seen before with this window here, or we can use the slice maker section just like this. So for example, let's make a few slices. Let's make this slice, let's listen to it. And now we just hit save. And we can save slices like this. So let's make a few more. Let me zoom in a bit. We can also zoom in the wave itself like this. Let's take a different wave. Very nice. Let's make another one with a different length. maybe something shorter. And let's do something like this. I will just make a few randomly, just with different lengths. Let's make it something like this, and another one here. So we'll have 8 slices all in all. Right, so we have 8 slices and saved, so we can move between them with the select tools here. So I can go to the left, slice 3, 2, 1. I can go to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can also address this with CV and sequence the slices. We can also move randomly. And of course, again, everything has CV input. We can delete, we can update the slice if you want to change a different slice. We can reset it. So we have all of the options we need to create slices. And what can we do, for example, is use the end of cycle output that will output a trigger when the sample or slice reaches the end, and use it to select a random slice through the random button here. So let's loop it and start. Let's see how it sounds like. And again, if we get those clicks, we can always activate the transient smoother. Let's make it play in reverse also. So you can create really interesting slices and sequence them in all sorts of ways, but there is another way to create slices. I will mute this and go down. So here I have a drum loop. Just like this, and we can use the grid mode to create slices for us. So let's activate the grid mode, and I will also activate the peak detection that will slice the sample according to the transients, and you can see this here. And in the right click menu of the window itself, of the sample window, we can change the threshold of this peak detection, and you can see how things are changing on the screen. And we can also change the distances between them, and again this will change the results. And again, we have a select knob here that we can go between or switch between the slices. In this case we have 71, and also this has a CV input, so we can address this with a sequencer. But we can also activate the random function, and now every time I hit start it will jump to a different slice. And of course we can activate also looping. And again we can change the threshold, so we can make this a bit more glitchy if you want. Let's make it again play in reverse, maybe slower. Let's see how it works with the piano. Okay, let's move on to the engine mode section and the CV outputs. Here we have a sample from Empty Vessel, and there will be a link in the description to a whole sample pack that Empty Vessel prepared for the Sasudio video, so make sure to check it out. You can get it for free and use it in your music. This is how it sounds like. And we have an internal modulation section that will modulate the speed of playback. It will modulate the very speed, so we can change the amount or depth of modulation. We can change the rate. We can change the waveform. We have sine wave, triangle, sawtooth, square, and random. We can set a unipolar modulation or an inverted one. Now we can also sync this with an external triggers or clocks. So here I have a clock. Let's sync it with the clock. We also have a sync input that will act like oscillator sync, but as for this version it's not working, but it will be fixed in the next update. Now we can FM this also, we can modulate the frequency of this modulation. I have here another oscillator. This will go to the modulation input. You get really interesting effects. Okay, now we also have the peak and CV outputs that we can use to trigger and modulate things in our patch. So let's go down. I have here a sample, an example ready. Very nice. So this is another sample from empty vessel. Very, very nice. We have a CV output that is an envelope follower, so it will follow the amplitude or the volume of the sample and will output an envelope according to it. So let's have a look on the scope. You know what, I will zoom in a bit so you can see this better. And now in the right click menu we can amplify this signal. We have the peak envelope follower CV multiplier. Have a look on the scope. Now. And we can also smoothen it out so it's more fit for modulation. Now we can use this for all sorts of things. So here down I have an FM operator. For now it's just playing one note. And we can start by using the CV output to modulate the feedback amount, this. So let's connect the CV output to the feedback and raise the attenuator. Let's wait for it. Now we also have a peak detector, this output here, that will output a trigger whenever the peak of the signal goes above a certain threshold. So we can use this trigger to sequence, for example, the pitch through the grid sequencer. Also here we can change the threshold, just like we've seen before, the peak threshold. If I take it down, we'll get many more triggers. Let's wait for it. So if you raise the threshold a bit, we'll get less triggers. So we can get modulation and triggers that are connected to the sample or to the recording. Again, there are so many uses for this. But let's move on to the expander. So here we have again the piano sample. And there's a relatively new expander that we can use to add even more control over different aspects of the sound. So like other expanders in VCV, it should be close to the main module. You can see if I bring it close to the module from the right, the very speed knob is changing. And also here we have this confirmation light that it's connected. And we have a few controls to change the play speed. So we can change it to play backwards, double time, half time. And so on. We can also address this with CV. So here I have the ADDR sequencer. Have a look here how it's changing. So you can sequence this. You can also control this with triggers, so I can go to the previous one. or to the next one, or also jump randomly from one to another. And we still have control over the vary speed. I mean, the knob here is different, but we have the mode input that will control the speed. As you can see here also. So we can still modulate the vary speed. Now I hope you are ready for this. We also have the click output, which will output, well, you will see. Oh yeah. It will output the actual noise, sound from clicking the buttons, which is perfect. It's amazing, 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 amazing. Okay, we also have the hold out. Let's connect it to the scope. You can see the gate. We have a gate or a constant voltage at 10, positive 10 volts. And this will stay on as long as Simpliciter is playing. If I hit here the pause, you can see it went down and we still get this click. What an amazing thing. Very cool, very cool. Now we can also add lovely tape magic with the wow function. And you can see this movement also here and here. It will... Oh man. Of course we can go crazy with this also. But just a bit to add this nice effect. We can also stop the tape with the mouse if I just click it. And for this we have the inertial control. If I take it all the way up, it will take longer for the tape to stop and to start again. So we have control over this as well. There are also some options in the right-click menu of the expander of the tape control, but I will let you explore those by yourselves. Let me quickly show you the yammer function. This is basically a delay that adds to the sound. We can add up to 20 delays, and here we have the mix, and here we can activate it. So we can basically add another more color to the sound, let's say. Okay, let's have a look at a few fun things you can try with Simpliciter. So Simpliciter will also record CV and not only audio, so you can try and record sequences, mangle them in all sorts of ways. I have here permutation. I'm sending the sequence to the left input, the trigger sequence to the right input. From the left output it goes through a quantizer, and I'm using sample and hold just to make sure the change in note happens with the trigger. And the right output goes to trigger our voice. This is how it sounds like. If I turn off the sound on sound, we will not hear the sequence, but I can use now a clock division to trigger the recording. So now we will hear different recordings of the sequence, and we can mangle this in all sorts of ways, just like this. You can change the modulation depth. Find a nice section I want to loop maybe. Play in reverse even. This is nice. Now I can stop recording and I have this sequence that again I can mangle and change. Okay, another thing you can try is using a sample for modulation only. So here down I have another example. I have a sample of my voice, so let's have a listen to this. And I recorded this in the mind to have this modulate something different. So let's disconnect it. I'm going to use it only to modulate the cutoff point of the filter with the CV output. You can see it's already connected. Now I'm going to send this to the mixer. It's going also through some reverb, the even VCO going through tangents. And I'm going to open the CV, the attenuator. So I can have my voice modulating things in VCV and create really interesting modulation sources like this. And again, I can mangle this in all sorts of ways. I can modulate the rate, make it play in reverse. I can use the expander even if I want to make all sorts of changes. I can create slices. And this I can also record into another Simpliciter and have it looping. You can use your own voice to modulate things in VCV, which is quite cool. Okay, another thing I like to use the CV output is to generate pitch information. I do this a lot with the Morphagene. So what I do, I use sample and hold and the quantizer to turn the CV out into a sequence. So here I have the percussive vibration, I have here this sample going, and this is how the percussive vibration will sound like, getting its sequence from the CV out and the triggers from the peak out. So you can use again the CV output for all sorts of things, also to generate a sequence according to what's playing on the sequencer, on the Simpliciter, sorry. Okay, now there are a few options in the right-click menu I want to show you. So first of all, we have the pre-record mode. This one here, that is useful when wanting to record something you don't know is coming, like a lightning strike, for example. It will basically add 2 seconds to the recording from before the time you hit record. Now in the window menu, we have also the busy mode, and if I activate it, now the start button will not do nothing as long as the sample is playing. So if the sample is playing and I hit start again and again, nothing will happen. But if I turn it off, you can see that the sample will restart every time I hit start. This is also useful. We also have a few selection options: reset, untrim, trim, and render. We can undo the last edit. We can cut and copy and paste and delete and zero and invert and normalize and everything, all of the selections. Now there is one thing I want you to experiment with, and that is the mega random chopping and mix. This will basically mangle your sample in really interesting ways. And that was it. There is so much to explore with Simpliciter, one of the most powerful tools in VCV for sure. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. If you enjoy what I do, consider becoming a Patreon. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe and hit the bell, and have a good one.